Okay, we got the back off this 1947 Lakester. Take a look at it here. Got a Ford inline 6 flathead. This is a started life as a 226. It's been bored over to a almost just a hair shy of a 230. It's got the aluminum pistons, dome tops. It's got two radiators in here. There's one on that side, a long one there, and then there's one tucked up in here, the front. And then got a fuel pump over here, mechanical fuel pump. This is one of the few rubber hoses in here to join the hard line over to the fuel pump, but everything else is steel lines. Moving along, we got a progressive link on the triple carbs here. So this one goes in first here, and then the other ones will take over and finish out. This is the shift linkage coming back here. This is the left and right select, and this one here moves forward and back for the front and back gears. You come across over in here, and here's your forward and back. You can see it rolling there, and then or the roll here, and then this is the front and back. And then there's the transmission back here. Got a oil filter, old school. It's got a little bucket that comes out of there to change the filter element. There's a fuel filter down there. Speaking of fuel, there's two fuel tanks. This is the primary tank here. It's got the lowest bottom down here. Fills up and when it gets about right here, that's the bottom of this tank. So when this tank gets to about here, this one is full all the way up to the top here, and then this one can keep going just a little bit more. So this is the high tank here. This was originally with the car. This one here was added. It barely fits. There's a fuel sender under here, and then to run the fuel gauge, and then all is well. Oil line comes out of here, goes to the filter, comes back from the filter, goes across, and dumps into the case over here. I got a really rare Newton aluminum head, and it says Cyclone on it, which is also a rare ordeal. I've only found one other than one of these heads sitting in an attic, but this one here is in good shape. Got to size this thermostat here. That runs around to the highest point right here. This is a shield, so if this blows, it don't go on your neck. And then back up a little bit. This is the degasification tank, which is in the heat circuit. It just runs back, bypasses the heater circuit. This vents over to the top of this radiator. So this one is submerged all the time, this cap. This is the degas, and then this is the high point for the fill. There's three radiator caps here. This one's set to go first. So once again, to protect the driver from spray. And since this is the high point, this goes to a puke tank and then to the road. And I'll cover the puke tank on the other side here. This is part of the fire circuit. These are wired in series, and they're strategically spaced at the most likely points of fire, since the carburetor gas intake manifold is right over the top of the exhaust. And this is the hot side of the car, no wiring here. So everything is hardline in the steel. So this is definitely sensitive to fire. Then it runs over on the other side, runs along the bottom, comes up just behind here, and then to the front to trigger the fire alarm. All right, where were we here? Okay, and then we got the battery. and a disconnect switch right here, which runs up to here, and we can get to it through here. Here's the disconnect lever from the outside of the car, which will turn on and off the battery. From the battery, it runs through this really cool thing here. This is a Westinghouse shunt. And then there is a small wire coming off the bottom of this. That white wire down there runs to the gauges up front for the load or the amp draw. Here's the other radiator. This was all handmade. They had split tanks and re-welded together on both ends. It was quite an ordeal. When I got this was all split and blown out, so this was all repaired. And then this one, the same thing. Let's see if I can get the light in here. See how narrow the core is and how wide these tanks are? So the tanks came off of a wide radiator, the appropriate one, brazed onto this thinner radiator, and then the top and bottom of these were chopped in half and braced together, both sides. So that's what it took to get that radiator in there. So, and I wanted to make that serviceable so it can come out. This firewall can tilt forward and that can come out. All right, so cruising along here. Here's your oil fill. And under here's the coil. Old steel can here. Here's the ignition resistor, another one of those fire sensors. And then this here is a mechanical tach generator. So this wheel is running on this belt here, picking up the tach from the engine. Then it's geared down to this one, which will run through a coupling to a 90-degree drive. And then under here is your tach cable. It runs down under the firewall, up and around to the back of this tachometer here. And that also gives you your hours, your engine hours, which is averaged at 2,000 RPM, what your hours would be. So that's the tach generator, which sits on top of the 12-volt generator to charge the battery with, which runs down to this honking voltage regulator to charge the battery. Here's showing you the side fuel cell, and this is the only one that's accessible from the outside of the car. There's a hatch here. Open up, you fill this up, and it drains through a 5/8 line right here, and then to the back here, and fills this tank into the side here. Then the bottom of this tank is what feeds the fuel pump to the engine. So, and then this is the overflow tank or the pute tank for the radiator, which runs up to the very top there. That hose is right here. Or actually, I'm sorry, that hose is down there. It fills from the bottom up, and then that way it can draw from this tank if needed to when it contracts. This is the overfill. If it gets absolutely full, comes up over the top, and that runs all the way back to the transmission and out a little hole right there. You can barely see it sticking down there. That's this hose. It's the overflow, and then this was a tank, barely fit in there. It's all original, and then that used to have a little cork indicator there, and a little. This used to be, it looks like a gas tank to a go-kart or a lawn tiller or something. And then I had a hole in there, so it's just a button head screw there sealing that hole. So that's what's going on back here. Oh, I wanted to show you the shifter. Okay, so here's the shift linkage. So here's side to side and forward and back. See if I can, there we go. Had to move the car a little bit, get it in gear. But anyway, get the gist of it there. And we got a choke mechanism right here that comes back to this lever. And then fuel's all hard lined into the carbs there. And then here's that fuel to glycol separator. And then this runs down to the fuel pressure gauge up front. And this runs to the PDOT tube that's on the top of the top of the body. This is the pressure, PDOT pressure that's going to push against the gauge for an air pressure reading, and this is your static pressure, which offsets the atmospheric pressure or altitude. And that's the back end here in a nutshell, and pretty much all of it, of this 1947 Lakester.